26 Miraculous Technique. By the time Shi Feng returned to the party, the elite night rabbit only had 1/3 of its HP remaining. Everyone had coordinated properly, Cola tanked in the front alone, while the others vigorously dealt damage. However, to control aggro, Blackie did not madly deal damage. Instead, he used Evil Whip to pin down the night rabbit, giving Cola some breathing space. Cola's performance was also very good. He steadily tanked the monster, and he also had good control over aggro. Cola was not at the level of a novice, but there was still a long road ahead before he became an expert. Cola, don't always try to block with your shield. It isn't a must to block an attack like the other virtual reality games. You can also dodge to avoid an attack. That way, you could reduce the stress on the healer. For everyone else, focus your attacks on the target. Don't just randomly attack, aim your attacks at the wild rabbit's claws or other weak points. That way, you can reduce a lot of burden on the MT. Shi Feng did not directly go up to help Cola, but instead, he taught everyone how to battle against monsters. If everyone battled while regarding God's Domain as a traditional game, the results would be disastrous. This was because the healing given out was usually far from being able to keep up with the damage received. Some parties would bring an extra healer. However, this would result in the damage being insufficient, the result was still a party wipe. Players only slowly got used to the combat style in God's Domain several months after the game opened. The players then would no longer be as cute and simple as they were now. Shi Feng wanted to cultivate everyone to build a foundation for his future workshop. So naturally, he needed to let these people learn the combat styles of God's Domain earlier. Everyone thought Shi Feng was also a noob, so they held slight dissatisfaction within their hearts. The expert did not say anything, so why was a noob like him giving out commands? However, Shi Feng's words made sense, so they still consciously did as Shi Feng said. Cola had also started to change his battle style. He was no longer using his shield to block the attacks rigidly. Instead, he retreated a step back when the wild rabbit launched its attack, taking the chance to avoid it. Although Cola still needed to use his shield to block most of the time, it had still greatly reduced the burden on the healer. Such a change allowed killing the night rabbit to become even easier. The few level 1 noobs were also slightly surprised. There was some change in their opinions towards Shi Feng. Shi Feng was not as unbearable as they had imagined him to be. Shi Feng only smiled at this situation. He did not mind their thoughts at all. Shi Feng only felt that Cola was quite good after seeing his performance. Although Cola was a first-rate expert 10 years later, he currently was still far from that point. If it were an expert MT, they would not retreat, but choose to dodge the attack without even moving. Such a decision was because if the MT moved, the monster would move as well. This situation would cause trouble for long-ranged damage dealers, which would result in the loss of a lot of damage. However, such a technique required a bounty of experience in battle and a body with dexterous reactions. Cola still needed a lot of training. The elite night rabbit fell within a moment. It dropped a skill book for berserkers, Whirlwind Slash. It also dropped 3 coppers. Everyone could not help but be amazed by the drop rate of Hell mode. A skill book dropped just after they killed an elite monster. If they killed over 10 elite monsters, then wouldn't they be able to obtain over 10 skill books? It should be known that skill books were extremely rare, and even a common skill could sell for 1 silver. Shi Feng naturally knew of their thoughts. However, not even Hell mode had that high of a drop rate. It was only 3 to 4 times that of hard mode. Afterward, Shi Feng passed Whirlwind Slash to the stupefied Lonely Snow, then he passed a level 1 bronze defensive plate armor to Cola, the Night Ranger dropped the armor. With these items, the party's strength slightly increased. Cola's mouth could not close after receiving the defensive plate armor. He hurriedly thanked Shi Feng for it. With this bronze plate armor, not only had Cola's defense increased by 14 points, but his HP had also become 350 points. Aside from Shi Feng and Blackie, everyone else on the scene was filled with envy. Bronze equipment was the identification of an expert. Outside the dungeon, it was impossible to obtain a piece of bronze equipment, even if you begged for it. And this piece of equipment was obtained by Shi Feng, alone. Yet, Shi Feng gave it to Cola without hesitation. Everyone's opinion towards Shi Feng changed quite a bit. They felt such a party leader was not bad at all. Shi Feng was unlike the other party leaders who would prioritize themselves when equipment dropped. As for bronze equipment, forget giving it away to a temporary party member, they would definitely keep it for themselves. Afterward, everyone followed Shi Feng as they advanced. Although the dark and gloomy forest was scary, everyone was no longer as nervous as they were before going through a stimulating fight. From time to time, 1 or 2 patrolling elite night rabbits would appear in front of them, and they would also respond to it quickly. When there were 2 night rabbits, Cola would tank one of them, while Shi Feng and Lonely Snow would rush over and kill the other. As for the ranged players, they would prioritize attacking the night rabbit in front of Shi Feng. The night rabbit's 700 HP would be gone quickly under the fierce bombardment. Afterward, the party supported Kola and finished off the other night rabbit. Within moments, 2 night rabbits were no more. With this process, a skill book, Restore, meant for healers also dropped. The skill had a 2-second cast time. When learned by oracles, the skill could instantly restore 37 HP. It was far better than Life Prayer. It did not share the same cooldown as Life Prayer, so the two could be used in coordination to negate the damage caused by the elite night rabbits completely. Drowsy Sloth continuously thanked Shi Feng and the other party members for letting him learn the skill book. Restore was an extremely important skill for conquering dungeons. If it were to be sold outside, it could go for at least 2 or 3 silver coins. Don't mind it. Skill books are meant to be used. Let's continue onward. Shi Feng smiled as he answered. Aside from AoE attack skill books, healer class skill books were the most expensive and rare. However, the Deathly Forest was a dungeon meant to let players build up their foundation in God's domain. In Hell mode, the drop rate for basic healing skills was very high. In Shi Feng's previous life, he had obtained 4 healing skill books just after entering Hell mode of the Deathly Forest once. It was not considered valuable. After more than an hour, Shi Feng's party arrived at a flat grassland. They had finally met the first boss of the dungeon. Willy, Chieftain rank. Level 3. HP 6000. Willy was a ferocious night rabbit. Its height was as tall as 2 people, and sharp steel claws decorated its paws. These claws loved creating a feast of fresh blood, and those caught by it would be ripped to shreds, turned into a river of blood. It was unknown how many players had died a gruesome death under these claws. A short distance away from Willy, there were 7 elite night rabbits on guard. These 7 rabbits were very close to each other. As long as one of them was attacked, the other wild rabbits would rush over as well. There was also a great possibility of attracting the boss. Even if it were Shi Feng, he would not be able to face off against 7 night rabbits, not to mention including a boss. However, if they did not finish off the 7 night rabbits, there was no way for them to attack the boss. Brother Feng, what should we do now? This place has too many night rabbits. The game isn't giving us any chances. Blackie was very anxious. Although the boss was in front of them, the system had dealt them such a hand. This difficulty was just too great. No wonder it was a hell mode dungeon. It was impossible to pass through without absolute strength. The system setting also angered everyone. Who could fend off 7 elite night rabbits? Even a level 5 guardian knight would not be able to do it. You all wait for me behind that rock. Kola, get ready to receive the monster. Everyone else is not allowed to attack without my command. Shi Feng pointed towards a large rock nearby. Shi Feng naturally knew that there were 7 elite night rabbits here. Everyone abided by Shi Feng's command without question. All the monsters they had killed on the way here relied on Shi Feng's commands for success. They killed quite a lot of night rabbits, and everyone had obtained 1 or 2 pieces of bronze equipment. Blackie even had 5 pieces of bronze equipment. Their party's strength has definitely surpassed the other elite parties. The credit for such an achievement belonged to Shi Feng's commands. As for Shi Feng, he had run to a location that was 40 yards away from the 7 night rabbits. He quietly hid within the bushes, observing the night rabbits' every movement. Everyone understood that Shi Feng was trying to lure monsters. However, the 7 night rabbits were too close to each other. Shi Feng was a swordsman. He did not possess any long-ranged attacking capabilities, so how could he lure monsters? Time passed bit by bit. Everyone was extremely anxious. If Shi Feng accidentally failed, then it would be a party wipe. However, Shi Feng was calm. He moved not an inch as he watched the faraway night rabbits. At this moment, a cool breeze blew past. A dead leaf on the trees was sent flying over. Seeing the dead leaf hovering down towards the night rabbit, Shi Feng picked up a small stone beside him. Gently, he tossed the stone over. The direction the stone flew to was towards the night rabbit closest to the boss. We're finished. Everyone understood what kind of outcome this would be. It would definitely be a combination of 1 boss and 7 night rabbits rushing towards them, turning them into blood sacrifices. The moment the stone was about to hit the night rabbit, the dead leaf just happened to have blocked between the stone and the night rabbit. The stone struck the dead leaf, smashing it onto the night rabbit. The night rabbit abruptly turned to look at its surroundings, only discovering a leaf. However, how could a leaf hitting it be so painful? Subsequently, the night rabbit left its unit to observe the surroundings. It looked around aimlessly, not knowing what it was trying to find. It had unknowingly moved over 20 yards away from its unit, and it was still moving further and further away. Too godly. Lonely Snow could not help but exclaim, his eyes had nearly popped out of their sockets. Everyone else had dumbly nodded as well. What kind of accurate judgment and aim was required to hit the dead leaf while hitting the night rabbit, and thereby confusing the night rabbit's hatred, causing it to look for its target blindly? Even calling it as an ultimate skill was not excessive. Was Shi Feng really a noob? He couldn't be some gaming god here to make a fool of them, right? Summoner, the rest is up to you. Shi Feng walked to the rock's location. He looked at the summoner, clapping the person's shoulders as he spoke, smiling. 27 Shi Feng's improved party. Hearing Shi Feng's comment, the summoner, Gluttonous Mouse, suddenly panicked. He did not understand what Shi Feng wanted him to do. If he had performed badly and was kicked from the party as a result, he would regret it until he died. It was hard to find a good party during this time, not to mention a party with an expert leading it. It was impossible to join such a party, even if you begged. Relax, I won't let you do anything dangerous. You just have to summon out a flame sprite and follow my instructions. You don't have to do anything else, Shi Feng said with a smile, trying to ease the nerves of Gluttonous Mouse a little. Currently, summoners were not strong, mainly due to the incapability of their skills. A summoner's method of attack mainly relied on their summoned creatures, whereas their normal attack was the low-damage magic bullet. However, a summoner with awesome skills could become a one-man army. It was especially true for summoners who could call out powerful elemental creatures. They could kill elite monsters as if they were just playing around. Party leader, rest assured, I'll definitely do it. Gluttonous Mouse loudly said, his tone filled with respect. He was like a student who had met his teacher. Everyone else, distance yourselves from that rock, 20 yards away from it would be the best. Pay attention not to lure the other monsters. Sh Feng turned around and said to the other party members. Yes, party leader. The other party members loudly replied. Their current attitudes were completely different from before. Shi Feng was slightly shocked by everyone's performance. Why was each and every one of them so obedient all of a sudden? However, Shi Feng did not know that the single stone he threw just now had completely shocked every one of them. They were filled with admiration towards Shi Feng's stone-throwing technique. Such skill and accuracy were definitely not something a normal person could do, professional players might not even be able to do so. Worshipping the strong was a common sight within a game. These level 1 noobs were no exception. At this moment, the gaze everyone used to look at Shi Feng was completely different. Before, they merely felt that Shi Feng was a good commander. Now, however, Shi Feng was a strong person they worshipped. They had faintly grown a sense of reverence for Shi Feng. Standing to the side, Blackie clapped Lonely Snow's shoulders, proudly saying, how is it? Following Brother Feng isn't bad, right? Lonely Snow silently nodded his head, rejoicing for the decision he made to follow after Shi Feng. Shi Feng was definitely a beta tester expert. Without sufficient experience and practice, such techniques were impossible to accomplish. Only a beta tester could possibly do it. Ha ha ha. What do you plan to do in the future? Blackie suddenly asked. He started to hatch ideas towards Lonely Snow. Blackie wanted to poach Lonely Snow for their workshop, even though the workshop was still non-existent. There was a 100% chance for Cola to join them, but Lonely Snow still did not have any plans to move in such a direction. The future. Lonely Snow had never considered it before. He was but an average player. He did not have any big ambitions, only wanting to earn some cash from playing games. He said honestly, I have never considered it before. I see that your techniques are quite good. Why don't you join us for now? Blackie nonchalantly asked. Really? Lonely Snow had anxiety about his future after Blackie's question. He did not know where he wanted to go. If he could party with an expert, then it could not get any better. Of course. However, we still need to look at your future performance. We don't just simply accept people, Blackie proudly said, pretending to be an expert. Thank you, Brother Black. Lonely Snow happily responded. He never imagined his luck would be so great as to be noticed by an expert. Seeing Lonely Snow agree, Blackie released a sigh of relief. Currently, Blackie was just a fox pretending to be a tiger. He couldn't help out Shi Feng much in God's domain, but he could still help out in regards to administration. There wasn't even a shadow of their workshop as of this moment. There was also the debt of 16,000 credits. The workshop's members consisted of only Shi Feng and himself. It was definitely the poorest workshop in history. If this was found out by the others, they would definitely turn around and leave. Now, Blackie could only fake being an expert to lure people to join their workshop. At this moment, Shi Feng was currently explaining the contents of the operation to the summoner. The operation was to let Gluttonous Mouse lure the remaining 6 night rabbits by controlling his flame sprite. Because the night rabbit that was closest to the boss was no more, luring the other night rabbits would not attract the boss. They could lure the monsters with ease. The flame sprite was extremely weak. Its HP was only a pitiful 15 points, and it would die in a single hit. However, its movement speed was extremely quick. Adding to its very small size, trying to hit it would be a difficult task. Start the operation. Mouse, remember to maintain a distance of 4 yards or above while circling around the rock, Shi Feng reminded once more. Gluttonous Mouse nodded his head. Carefully, he controlled the flame sprite to lure the 6 night rabbits. When the sprite entered the 35-yard distance, the nearest elite night rabbit discovered the flame sprite. Suddenly, it turned its body around and rushed towards the flame sprite. The other night rabbits also came rushing along. Seeing the night rabbits taking the bait, Gluttonous Mouse immediately controlled the flame sprite and ran. The 6 night rabbits were in hot pursuit, but their speed could no match for the flame sprite. In a moment, the flame sprite had arrived beneath a large rock. It had lured the 6 night rabbits over and started circling around the large rock. On the other side, Kola had already aggroed the night rabbit that had left its unit. Kola interchanged between blocking and using his new skill, Divine Strike. With the effects of 2 pieces of bronze equipment, a single hit from Divine Strike had caused 26 damage. It was a lot higher compared to the 11 or 12 damage caused by a normal strike. Also, Divine Strike had the added effect of increasing hatred. It became a lot easier to hold aggro. The night rabbit was killed off within a short moment. It dropped 5 coppers. After this night rabbit was handled, only the 6 night rabbits that kept on circling around the large rock remained. I'll lure the night rabbits. Kola, pay attention to pull the monster. Shi Feng picked up another small stone, throwing it at the night rabbit that ran at the rear. The night rabbit rubbed its cranium after being struck on it. The rabbit turned around, discovering Shi Feng that had thrown the stone. The night rabbit suddenly became enraged. It madly hopped towards Shi Feng with its powerful legs. As for the other night rabbits, they were still excitedly chasing after the flame sprite, failing to notice the disappearance of one of their companions. Receive it. Seeing the night rabbit was only 20 yards away from the party, Shi Feng commanded. Kola rushed ahead, sending a divine strike towards the night rabbit's head. The night rabbit's target immediately changed, extending its claws towards Kola's cranium. However, Kola had reacted quickly by dodging his body sideways. After avoiding the attack, Kola continued by using punishment. The skill had once more strengthened the night rabbit's hatred to Kola. Everyone, focus fire. Shi Feng inwardly applauded after seeing Kola's performance. He had never imagined Kola's ability to learn would be this great. He had already found out about the night rabbit's attack patterns after going through slightly more than 10 battles. No wonder he was the core MT of a first-rate guild, 10 years later. His potential was limitless. The night rabbit in front of Kola had fallen within 20 seconds. It had even dropped a skill book for swordsman, Double Chop. Shi Feng immediately learned it without reservations. Double Chop, action type. Requires, sword. Level 1. Proficiency 0/300. Rapidly deals damage twice. Every slash of the sword deals 120% plus 15 damage, also increasing bleeding effect by 20%. Duration of 10 seconds. Stacks up to a maximum of 5 times. Cooldown, 8 seconds. This skill book had greatly increased Shi Feng's explosive power. As for the problem of getting used to the skill, it was non-existent for Shi Feng. After playing for 10 years as a swordsman, the skills belonging to the job were deeply ingrained into Shi Feng's bones. As long as Shi Feng got a hold of these skills, he would be able to utilize them to their greatest potential. Shi Feng had also lured the remaining 5 night rabbits over, one after another. The party had killed the rabbits one by one, and following the death of the final night rabbit, a golden glow appeared around Shi Feng's body. He had risen to level 2. At the same time, the 5 night rabbits had contributed to the party a piece of bronze plate armor for guardian knights. The equipment increased Kola's HP to 390 points and his defense to 56. It had also increased Kola's ability to resist against the night rabbit chieftain, Willy. 28. The Horror of Hell mode. With the elites that were on guard all dead, only the boss, Willy, remained on the open field. At this moment, Willy was laying on the ground, sleeping. It would scratch its back from time to time, completely unaware of its missing henchmen. Everyone, recover for now. I'll explain the method to raid Willy in a moment. Shi Feng wanted everyone to ease up first. It would not be easy to face off against Willy. The fight would require a high degree of concentration because a single mistake would cause everyone to be buried together. Hearing Shi Feng's command, everyone sat down to recuperate. They ate and drank to recover to their best state. Shi Feng's finger waved and shook as he called up his attribute panel. He had recently reached level 2. Because of the Abyssal Blade, the free attribute points he obtained exceeded other players by 2 points. The choices he could make with his points were slightly more than the average player. In the initial period, it was sufficient for the agility of a swordsman to reach 20 points. However, Shi Feng increased his to 30 points. There would be a fixed increase in the body's flexibility when agility reached 30 points. Subsequently, Shi Feng added the remaining points into strength, making it easier for him to contend with the boss. Shi Feng had on him 3 pieces of bronze equipment, a mysterious iron ring, and a magic weapon. Shi Feng attributes had basically reached his own requirements. Character, Ye Feng, human. Affiliated Kingdom, Star Moon. Title, Might of 1000. Job, Swordsman. Level, 2. HP, 520/520. Attack Power, 88. Defense Power, 39. Attack Speed, 15. Movement Speed, 13. Attributes, Strength 32, Agility 30, Endurance 24, Intelligence 13, Vitality 13. With such attributes, Shi Feng had more confidence dealing with Willy. Seeing everyone recovered, Shi Feng started explaining, Willy has two skills. One of them is Killing Feast. When used, Willy will ignore hatred and randomly attack the nearest players. Blackie and Lonely, you two have to pay attention to your positioning. The other skill is Death Claws. Cola, you have to distance yourself from the boss before this skill is used. Lonely Snow, pay attention to interrupt the boss. I'll remind you when the time comes. Another point to take note of, Willy is very smart, so don't keep on using the same attack pattern. Alright, that's it. If we're ready, then start the battle, Cola. Brother Feng, is there nothing else we have to pay attention to? Blackie walked up to Shi Feng's side, whispering. This place was the hell mode of the Deathly Forest. Not everyone was an expert, as well. However, Shi Feng's explanation was so simple that it made them feel conquering this boss was very easy. However, there were so many elite parties which had died inside normal mode, so how could hell mode be so simple? Party leader, are there no details we need to pay attention to? Everyone was very worried. They all held anticipation in their gazes as they looked towards Shi Feng, hoping that he would speak more about the finer details. They were noobs, so there were a lot of things they did not understand. In regards to an expert like Shi Feng, the things he felt were common knowledge, were definitely not common to noobs like them. Elites could not be compared to a boss. The other elite parties must have definitely died at the hands of the boss. Although their equipment was better than an elite party's, they were still level 1 noobs. They clearly knew their own worth. You guys worry too much. Relax. When the time comes, I'll tell you what you should do and when you should do it, so don't worry about it. Cola, start the fight and remember to dodge more often. A single healer will not be able to match up to the boss damage, Shi Feng smiled. He felt his party members were quite interesting. They were much more serious about the details than he had thought. In his previous life, Shi Feng had entered Hell Mode dungeons countless times as the captain of Shadow. There was also no lack of 100-man dungeons amongst those times. So, how could he not know how to guide a few noobs to beat a small boss? Cola had no choice but to go at it hard. Willy abruptly leaped up the moment Cola entered its detection range. Its mouth salivated when it saw Cola, and its two pairs of steel claws intertwined to produce sparks. Cola had clearly stimulated Willy's heart of massacre. It lifted its steel claws and hastily dashed towards Cola. Start casting heals. All damage dealers prepare to attack Willy's limbs. Shi Feng commanded when he saw Willy's menacing appearance. Just when Shi Feng finished speaking, Willy had arrived before of Cola. Before Cola could react, its sharp claws had fallen from the sky, slashing at Cola's neck. Pang! Cola instinctively used his shield to block the steel claws, forming 3 brilliant streaks of sparks. There were also 3 claw marks left on the shield. Due to the immense rushing force, Cola was forced to retreat 5 or 6 steps as he stabilized his body. Above his head, a damage of -103 appeared. Before Cola could even attack, Willy once again waved out its steel. This time, Cola was sent flying with his shield, and a damage of -105 points appeared. Only at this moment did the heal land on Cola, recovering 43 HP for him. It was a truly insignificant amount when compared to the damage Cola received. Everyone was shocked. The movement speed and damage of the boss was too horrifying. If Cola did not possess 2 pieces of bronze equipment, or if he did not block the attacks with his shield, he would have simply died from these 2 strikes. Lonely Snow, use charge on Willy. Blackie, use evil whip. Shi Feng had long since expected such a situation. He quickly instructed Blackie to use a binding skill. Lonely Snow reacted by using a charge to block Willy's next attack and saved Cola's life. However, Lonely Snow's attack had only caused -11 damage to Willy. He became dumbfounded by it. He had added most of his attribute points into strength, and he even had 2 pieces of bronze equipment on him. Yet, he had dealt such a small amount of damage. It should be known that the boss in front of him had 6000 HP. Blackie also finished chanting from the side, sending out his evil whip. 5 streaks of pitch black thorns suddenly constricted Willy's legs. Shi Feng took the chance to circle around to Willy's rear. With the abyssal blade in hand, he used double chop on Willy's neck, causing -66 and -67 damage. His attack also caused a bleeding effect, causing Willy to lose 8 HP every second, lasting for 10 seconds. The high damage immediately caused Willy to switch its hatred to Shi Feng. However, Shi Feng did not give it any chance. With his 30 agility, Shi Feng easily dodged away from the steel claws, appearing 5 yards away from Willy. Ao! 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 Willy furiously bellowed as it rushed at Shi Feng. Ranged players start attacking. Cola, come over and hold Willy after you're done recovering. Shi Feng systematically retreated while he dodged Willy's claws. However, the others watching Shi Feng were shocked to their souls. This was because Willy's claws would graze by Shi Feng's cranium every time it attacked, blowing his hair into a dance. Although everyone was shocked, they never stopped attacking. Magic attacks were sent out one after another, whereas Lonely Snow used Whirlwind Slash at Willy's rear. However, not one of those damages had exceeded -20 points. Willy's HP slowly decreased. When it was occasionally struck by Shi Feng, its HP would drop by a segment. Willy's HP had fallen to 90% within a moment. Willy became enraged as it started a mad dance with its claws. It used Death Claws, greatly increasing its attack speed. Shi Feng was nearly hit by it. Fortunately, however, he had used the Abyssal Blade to block the attack, only receiving -130 damage from it. At this moment, the Cola rushed up with his full HP. He used a Divine Strike on Willy's head, followed by a punishment. Willy's hatred only switched to Cola after a series of attacks. The switching of hatred had also interrupted Willy's Death Claws, returning Willy to its normal state. Seeing Willy change targets, Shi Feng waved out a thundering flash. 3 streaks of thunder passed through Willy's body, dealing -92, -116, -137 damage. At the same time, giving Willy a damage amplification effect, it allowed others to deal 20% more damage to it. The fight with Willy became much easier. Blackie was sending out dark arrows without stopping, each dealing over -50 damage. Whereas the others only managed to deal over -20 damage to Willy. Being given a painful beating, Willy was just about to turn around and attack Shi Feng when Cola used both Divine Strike and Punishment once more. Willy's hatred was quickly pulled back to Cola. When Willy turned back to Cola, Shi Feng used a chop on it. In such a way, Shi Feng and Cola took turns aggroing Willy, causing it unable to attack any players. Willy's HP continuously dropped until it was 30%. Willy entered a berserk state, its body increasing by several sizes. Melee players stay away from the boss. Blackie, use Evil Whip. Healer, heal me. Shi Feng loudly shouted. In its current state, Willy was definitely going to use its big move, Killing Feast. Lonely Snow and Cola immediately distanced themselves from the boss after hearing Shi Feng's command, letting Shi Feng tank the boss by himself. When the two of them had run out of the 10-yard range, Willy disappeared. No one understood what happened. When Willy reappeared, it had already arrived at Shi Feng's back, and its steel claws abruptly descended. Shi Feng had long since been ready for this. He used his sword to block the incoming claws. However, just after blocking this attack, Willy once again disappeared and again appeared behind Shi Feng. Within 2 short seconds, Willy had attacked Shi Feng's back 7 times. Fortunately, Shi Feng's agility had reached 30 points. It was barely enough to match up to Willy's speed. However, every attack Shi Feng blocked would still take away a significant amount of HP from him. The heals he received also continuously recovered his HP. -96, -97, +46, -96, -97, +48, +32, -96, -97, +46. If Shi Feng did not possess 520 HP and blocked every claw that came at him, Shi Feng would have died from Willy's Killing Feast with 100% certainty. At this moment, Shi Feng's remaining HP did not reach 100 points. Get rid of it. Shi Feng loudly shouted. After using his big move, Willy would enter a weakened state. It was the perfect chance to kill it. Everyone continuously greeted Willy with their attacks, finally shaving off Willy's remaining 30% HP. It dropped 4 items. Just as everyone was about to let loose their breaths, Shi Feng took a look at everyone's current status. The healer, Drowsy Sloth's remaining MP did not reach 20%, and the other mage's MP did not reach 10%. Shi Feng hurriedly said, "Everyone, sit down and recover immediately." Everyone was confused. Didn't the boss just die? Why must they be in such a hurry? However, everyone still listened to Shi Feng's command to sit down and recover. Before they had even sat down and recuperated with food and drinks for 5 seconds, a violent roar entered everyone's ears. The roar had shaken the entire deathly forest, and following it, a black shadow leaped out from within the forest. The black shadow was a gigantic werewolf. The werewolf looked at Willy's corpse, then looked towards Shi Feng and the others. Its pitch-black eyes suddenly turned crimson red. Just when it wanted to release a roar, Shi Feng dashed towards it with wind blade. Immediately, Shi Feng used Abyssal Bind. 9 chains appeared and bound the werewolf in its mouth, preventing it from making a sound. At this moment, Everyone finally saw the werewolf's statistics. It had a whopping 2 bars of HP. Werewolf felt, Lord rank. Level 3. HP 12,000/12,000. Crap, why is there a Lord boss? Blackie cursed. They had barely rested just after killing a boss, and now there was a Lord in front of them. Lords were a rank higher than chieftains. The game was literally trying to kill them. Everyone remember, absolutely do not let Werewolf felt let out another roar. Shi Feng continuously reminded everyone. However, the others were clearly frightened. Not because of Werewolf felt's body and HP, but because of that pair of horrifying crimson eyes. They gave off an intimidating feeling to everyone that made it hard to move. 29 Extraordinary State. In front of the dungeon of the Deathly Forest, the numbers of level 2 players gathering were increasing. There was also an endless stream of players diving down into the dungeon. Because there were a lot of level 2 players, there was quite an amount of players who had set up stalls, peddling to the side. Good quality level 0 common equipment, don't miss it when you pass by. You can only go down the dungeon with good equipment. Equipment is limited, hurry over and buy. Small HP potions instantly heals 90 HP once. A must-have tool for a battle that is worthy of you. God's domain had been open for over 10 hours now. The players here were all level 2 players. After over 10 hours of battling, they had gathered quite a few items. Many level 2 players had intended to sell the items which they had no use for, switching them for something they could use. Such a situation had caused business to flourish at the Deathly Forest. Although the number of players in front of the Deathly Forest continued to increase, the number of parties entering the dungeon kept on decreasing. Only those parties that were unaware would enter the Deathly Forest. However, after those players had been properly nurtured by the Deathly Forest, they suddenly discovered their previous beliefs to be very naive. Hence, they obediently stood in front of the dungeon. They talked about life with other parties while watching new parties enter the dungeon with a smile. They had also investigated reports of the Deathly Forest together with the experienced parties, mutually improving their strategies to conquer the dungeon. Following wave after wave of players entering and dying out of the dungeon, the Deathly Forest had finally become the sore point of every player in Red Leaf Town. Every player who entered the Deathly Forest only had one impression of the dungeon. It was extremely horrifying. Currently, in the resurrection graveyard of the Deathly Forest, 6 streaks of white light flashed into existence. Following which, 6 figures revealed themselves from within. There is just no way to clear this dungeon. Snow, I think we would be better off grinding monsters or doing quests. Just after reviving, Zhao Yuru stamped her delicate feet, her chest heaving up and down. The cuteness of her enraged, yet delicate appearance instantly attracted the attention of a crowd of male players. Gentle Snow shook her head, saying in contemplation, our gains inside the Deathly Forest are relatively good, so we can't just easily give up. But the forest inside the Deathly Forest is too large. Adding in the great number of small paths, we would easily become lost without a map. However, I believe that amongst the numerous pathways, there must be a few that lead to the boss location. The other paths are only there as a trap to confuse us. That is why we are always being ambushed by the night rabbits. The more we fight, the more night rabbits will come. For now, let's investigate for some information and see if we can complete a map for the Deathly Forest. Everyone felt that Gentle Snow's speculation made sense, especially about the part where they attacked the night rabbits. Occasionally, a chilling arrow aimed at the cleric, Xiao Yuer, would appear from within the forest. If it wasn't for Xiao Yuer's skill at dodging, they would have long since party wiped. Also, the deeper they went into the forest, the more numerous the night rabbits became. In the end, the night rabbits became too overwhelming in numbers. They were unable to shoulder all of the rabbits, which resulted in their return through death. If they could find the correct path, they might have already cleared the dungeon by now. Zhao Yuru could only nod her head in agreement. The party's leader was, in fact, Gentle Snow, and Gentle Snow's speculations were always very accurate. Zhao Yuru could not help but believe in her. Going with the suggestion, Gentle Snow and Zhao Yuru nonchalantly shouted a few times, stating that they wanted to trade information about the Deathly Forest. It couldn't be denied, the striking effect created by 2 great beauties calling out. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the Deathly Forest started to boil as players rushed over, one after another. Every one of them wanted to be the first in position. Too many of the male players, this was a great chance for them to talk to a goddess. Who knew, if the goddess had looked upon them they might be able to live a blessed life in the future. Meanwhile, inside the hell mode of the Deathly Forest, the sky within the dungeon had already darkened. Thousands of birds soared to the skies, leaving the forest in a deadly silence. Werewolf felt was not any common monster. It was a very famous werewolf. In the past, it massacred countless in Red Leaf Town, nearly turning Red Leaf Town into a town of death. In a fit of rage, the Star Moon Kingdom had sent out its army to surround Felt. In the end, after being heavily wounded by the Great Sword Master, Hilton, Felt had escaped into the deathly forest to treat its wounds. It was the reason why the dungeon of the deathly forest existed. In hell mode, Felt had 3 absolute skills. The first one was Death Stare. Enemies who Felt stared at would have their attack speed and movement speed greatly reduced. If one had a weak willpower, they might not even be able to move. Presently, only Shi Feng had 30 points in agility. After he had activated the 3 hidden basic skills he possessed, he gained a certain amount of resistance towards the Death Stare. As for the other people, their reactions would become very sluggish. That was why Shi Feng remained the one to keep Werewolf Felt in check, whereas Drowsy Sloth continuously healed Shi Feng. However, Drowsy Sloth's casting speed had slowed by half. As for the melee players, they were no help whatsoever. However, it was not because they did not want to help, but it was because they had no way of helping at all. Werewolf Felt's attack speed was just too fast. It was to the degree where they couldn't react to its attacks. It was as if they were facing off against an expert that came straight out from a wuxia novel. Normal people had no chance to interfere whatsoever. They would only be creating more trouble if they had rushed up to the battle. So, it was still better to just watch from the side. Currently, only the ranged mages dealt damage. However, the damage caused was just too low. Even Blackie's dark arrows were only dealing -24 damage each. Lonely, interrupt the roar. Seeing Felt abruptly inhaling, Shi Feng immediately shouted. Lonely Snow had long since prepared for this moment. Immediately, he went forward and used charge, causing Felt to enter a 1-second fainted state. Then, he quickly retreated. Shi Feng took the chance to use Thundering Flash, Double Chop, and Chop. One attack after another landed on Felt's chest. Before Felt could even regain its breath, it had spat out a mouthful of blood. Shi Feng had caused a terrifying -500 damage to it. Within an instant, Felt's HP had fallen to 78%. Everyone watching became dumbfounded. Regarding Shi Feng's powerful actions, they only had one word to say, amazing. They were even more impressed by Shi Feng's eyesight. He had actually discovered such a weakness on Felt's body. Now, everyone was further reassured that Shi Feng was not as simple as he seemed. However, Shi Feng did not display any great excitement. Although they had interrupted Hell's Roar and avoided a party wipe, this would create a reverse effect. After spitting out a mouthful of blood, Werewolf Felt's condition became much more pleasant. It spun its head around and immediately slashed its sharp claws at Shi Feng. The slashing speed of Felt's claws was even a notch quicker than before, filling the sky with the afterimages of its claws. However, Shi Feng was not a weakling either. Strength, agility, and endurance, Shi Feng activated the hidden basic skills of all 3 of these attributes. With these skills activated, it meant that Shi Feng's constitution was no longer that of an average player, but an extraordinary one. Shi Feng's greatest asset in coming into the deathly forest was this extraordinary state which he could activate at any given moment. With it, he could do things that normal players couldn't. Under a sky filled with afterimages of claws, Shi Feng could still remain safe and sound. It was as if Shi Feng was dancing under the afterimages. Occasionally, Shi Feng used his sword to fend off the attacks which he could not avoid. This was the power of being under an extraordinary condition. His 5 senses became extremely sensitive, and his brain's processing abilities became exceptionally focused. Shi Feng could utilize his body to its greatest potential. If it was an average player, however, they would be unable to carry out such feats. It was both mentally and physically taxing to the extraordinary condition. If Shi Feng had not become accustomed to it before, he would only be able to maintain such a state for a few seconds. Claws and sword intertwined, creating countless dazzling sparks. Both sides had their HP continuously falling. Fortunately, Shi Feng was able to survive the exchange with Drowsy Sloth's timely heals. Afterward, under Shi Feng's command, Lonely Snow would occasionally interrupt the Hell's Roar, while Cola would hold back Felt whenever Shi Feng was in danger, and Blackie would use Evil Whip to contain Felt's movements. In such a way, Werewolf Felt's HP continuously decreased, 70%, 60%, 30%. Everyone stand in a straight line facing the boss. Quickly! Shi Feng hurriedly shouted when he saw Werewolf Felt's HP nearing 30%. Werewolf Felt would become the most frightening when its HP decreased to 30%. During this time, it was impossible to interrupt the Hell's Roar. They could only take it head-on. No one had any hesitation, they knew that the boss was about to go berserk. They immediately took action, forming a straight line against Werewolf Felt, while also maintaining a 30-yard distance away from it. The moment Werewolf Felt's HP reached 30%, its fur started changing colors. Within a moment, its fur had become snow white, and 2 streams of blood leaked from its eyes. Its chest also started to quickly expand, as if it was a swelled-up frog. Shi Feng immediately activated Gravity Liberation, quickly arriving in front of everyone else. Cola, use Protection Blessing on me. Shi Feng loudly shouted. Protection Blessing was able to reduce the damage taken by a party member by 50% for a duration of 6 seconds. It was a life-saving skill with a 5-minute cooldown, and right now was the perfect moment to use it. Protection Blessing of Guardian Knights and Shield Wall of Shield Warriors. These two skills had a high drop rate inside the Hell mode of the Deathly Forest. Before, the reason why Shi Feng had wasted time on clearing out some unnecessary night rabbits was all to obtain this skill, Protection Blessing. 30 Crimson Blade. Kola had long since been ready for this moment. The instant Shi Feng let out the command, his mouth began chanting divine texts. Streaks of golden divine texts rushed at Shi Feng. Protection Blessing. Suddenly, Shi Feng was surrounded by countless golden divine texts, giving off a dazzling golden glow. At the same time, Drowsy Sloth, at the rear of the line, continuously cast Recover and Life Prayer, pulling Shi Feng's HP back up to full and returning him to his best condition. Prepare for a battering attack. Absolutely do not leave from my back. Seeing Werewolf Felt's line of sight shifting towards them, Shi Feng held the abyssal blade across his chest as he commanded. Hearing Shi Feng's words, everyone started to tense up. Their hearts were not courageous, to begin with. Now, their hearts started to madly beat. They were being covered in a cold sweat even before Werewolf Felt used its skill. Suddenly, Werewolf Felt moved. Its expanded chest started moving upwards, moving past its throat and to its mouth. Ho! Within an instant, everyone aside from Shi Feng felt their hearts stop beating. It was as if the world had turned grey and silent. The soaring birds in the sky had also turned motionless. Everyone could clearly see the multitude of grey-colored waves being emitted from Werewolf Felt's body. Streak after streak, it continuously expanded. The dark grey ripples quickly arrived in front of everyone. However, they could not move even a muscle. It was not because they did not wish to move, but because their bodies could not keep up with the speed of their thoughts. Everyone could feel that time was moving by at an exceptionally slow pace. However, everyone understood that although the movement of time appeared slow, in reality, it was moving at the pinnacle of speed. Just like absolute experts crossing swords, the moment the exchange happened, time would move exceptionally slowly. At this moment, only Shi Feng slightly moved. Phantom Kill. The instant the dark grey ripples arrived in front of Shi Feng, his doppelganger had blocked in front of him. At the same time, the doppelganger used parry. Subsequently, the grey ripples made contact with the doppelganger. However, they were blocked by the doppelganger's parry, whereas the doppelganger himself retreated a step back. He only stabilized his body after colliding with Shi Feng. Just after the doppelganger stabilized himself, another wave of ripples came smashing. The ripples passed through the doppelganger's body this time, causing his HP to instantly decrease by 300 points. Behind him, Shi Feng had also received -30 damage, while the others behind Shi Feng received -20 damage. However, the ripples did not stop with just one wave. When the third wave of ripples passed through the doppelganger, his body had instantly disintegrated. A damage of -100 points also appeared above Shi Feng's head. Subsequently, wave after wave of dark grey ripples followed 100, -100, -100, -100. Shi Feng's HP fell time and time again until only 90 points remained. When the final wave of ripples was about to get rid of Shi Feng, he used parry. Hong! Shi Feng retreated a big step backward. However, he did not receive any damage. The people behind him were also unharmed. However, their HP after going through several waves of attacks did not exceed 50%. At this moment, Drowsy Sloth's Recover had only landed on Shi Feng's body, pulling Shi Feng's HP back to 140. Following which he used Life Payment, recovering 130 HP for Shi Feng. Within a moment, Shi Feng's HP had returned to over 50%. This roar really is powerful. I even thought we were finished. Blackie wiped off the cold sweat from his forehead. If Shi Feng had not blocked in front of them, they would all be goners by now. When he thought back to how Shi Feng nearly died, Blackie's heart started beating rapidly, reaching 180 beats per minute. If Shi Feng died, then they would die as well. There was nobody else in the party who could pin down Werewolf Felt for a long period of time. At this moment, everyone looked at Shi Feng as if they were looking at a monster. Never would they have imagined that Shi Feng would ingeniously use his doppelganger to block 2 of those onslaughts. He had also used parry on the final attack. The way Shi Feng had calculated both damage and HP was absolutely brilliant. Such a technique definitely belonged to the realm of God. Stop daydreaming, all of you. Quickly attack the boss, it's in a weakened state right now. Shi Feng only shrugged his shoulders at his party's reaction. Such a technique could be done by many experts in a few more years. However, Shi Feng had yet to relax. The thing he had to pay attention to the most right now was the boss. Only he knew how hard it was to deal with Werewolf Felt. Wind Blade. With gravity liberation activated, Shi Feng instantly arrived in front of Felt. He tightly gripped the abyssal blade, continuously sending attacks towards Felt's chest. Thundering flash. Double chop. Chop. Damage that exceeded -100 appeared above Werewolf Felt's head, one after another. The other party members were also able to deal damage of over -20 with each attack. Very quickly, they had reduced Werewolf Felt's HP down to 15%. When they saw that Felt was about to die, everyone revealed smiles of excitement. Don't be careless. Blackie, use your evil whip. Lonely Snow, prepare to interrupt with charge. Shi Feng commanded as he dodged Werewolf Felt's attack. Being told what to do in such a way, everyone's hearts suddenly constricted. A death stare and a hell's roar was already unimaginably terrifying. If it was any other party here, they would have long since revived back at the graveyard. Could Werewolf Felt actually have another powerful skill? How horrifying was this hell mode? Shi Feng constantly paid attention to Werewolf Felt's HP. Just when Felt's HP fell down to 10%, its third big move finally came. Death Berserk. This move would increase Werewolf Felt's attack speed by 100%, its movement speed by 40%, and its attack power by 100% until it died. It was precisely this move that had caused countless elite parties to curse out in madness. After activating Death Berserk, Werewolf Felt's fur started turning red. In a moment, it had become blood red in color. Adding in its crimson red eyes and sharp fangs, Felt looked remarkably like a blood fiend. Its terrifying appearance had caused everyone to inadvertently retreat a step backward. They could clearly feel the air of danger given off by Felt. Shi Feng used another double chop, stacking the bleeding effect to 5 layers. Afterward, he spun around and ran. After activating Death Berserk, there was no one under level 5 who was able to block Felt. That included Shi Feng, even if he had a magic weapon. The only method was to kite one it and slowly grinding Felt to death. The moment Shi Feng had escaped the 10-yard distance, Felt's thick thighs suddenly doubled in size. One of its legs abruptly stomped the ground, sending it flying like an arrow, rushing towards Shi Feng. Shi Feng was about to arrive at the location of the large rock, but behind him, Felt's speed was just too fast. He definitely could not make it. Shi Feng abruptly made a 90-degree sharp turn. Hong! Without making any turns, Werewolf Felt smashed straight into the large rock blocking its path, turning it into rubble. Fragmented rocks the size of a person's head were sent flying more than 10 yards away. Seeing such horrifying strength, even a fierce man such as Kola had his heart trembling. If he were struck by those claws, then he would definitely become meat paste. At this moment, Shi Feng had already distanced himself over 20 yards from Felt. Meanwhile, the attacks from the mages never stopped. They continuously ground away Felt's HP. Shi Feng's plan to kite Felt was a success. Every time Werewolf Felt was about to catch up, Lonely Snow would charge at it. He then followed it up with a bone crusher, greatly reducing Felt's speed. Afterward, he pulled away from Felt once more. When Lonely Snow's skills were on cooldown, Blackie would use Evil Whip to constrict Felt once more. The skills of the two of them had a quick cooldown. With Shi Feng's occasional Abyssal Bind, they had formed a perfect cycle to toy with Werewolf Felt without pause. 7%. 6%. 5%. 3%. Finally, when Felt only had 1% HP remaining, Shi Feng abruptly turned around. Wind Blade. Thundering Flash. Chop. Double Chop. Shi Feng's single sword slashed at Werewolf Felt's chest, taking away its final 1% HP. System, your party is the first to clear a Hell Mode dungeon. Rewards increased by 100%, loot increased by 100%. System, cleared Hell Mode of Deathly Forest. Rewarding 8000 EXP. At this moment, Werewolf Felt exploded, dropping out over 10 items. And amongst them, there was one that made Shi Feng's eyes shine. Crimson Blade. It was a sword that had the color of fresh blood. It gave off a dull red glow, and there was also faint drops of red liquid dripping off the edges of the blade. The entire sword revealed a dense killing aura. Shi Feng never imagined that the item with an abysmal drop rate would actually appear in front of him. *****. TL notes. 1 kite, a term in video gaming and elsewhere to describe when a ranged fighter skirmishes with a hand-to-hand fighter by running and shooting. This can have two purposes, A, to damage the enemy while staying outside of hand-to-hand range, or B, to make the enemy follow you so you can lead them to a specific location.